Live. I'm live on Pop's channel to talk about Kung Fu movies. Who doesn't love Kung Fu movies? I remember seeing Five Fingers of Death when it came out on its first theatrical release. We went to a theater in the Combat Zone in Boston called the Strand. My friend Randy and I. We were the only white boys in the audience. We never had any trouble, but we did see fights erupt in front of us, between us and the screen. But that didn't vitiate the power of the movie, Five Fingers of Death, which was probably the first great kung fu movie to grab my attention. Then I became aware of Bruce Lee. And of course, I caught all his movies, especially Enter the Dragon when it came out. I've loved kung fu movies all my life. And I think the thing that we love about them the most is, aside from the story and the characterization, is the way that they show combat in a realistic yet dynamic manner. Because if you watch a real fight, if you're a fan of boxing or mixed martial arts, sometimes there's just a lot of grunting and staggering around and rolling on the ground and flurries of punches, which often don't connect. But it's never like that in the movies. In the movies, every punch connects, every kick connects. It's beautifully choreographed. And to my mind, the greatest kung fu movies of all time are these Ip Man movies starring Donnie Yen. First Ip Man movie came out and I watched it. Now, of course, they mythologize their history ridiculously and it bears a very tenuous relationship to the truth. But when you watch that movie and you see the choreography and the way that they do that, because one of the hallmarks of Chinese martial arts movies is that they film real martial arts experts doing it in real life before your eyes with no tricks. I don't like wire fu. I don't like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, movies like that, with people flying through the air to deliver devastating kicks after 100 yards of flight. I like to be able to believe that the actors are really doing their moves and that they've rehearsed and worked on them for ages to get them right, like Jackie Chan. I mean, nobody puts more work into his movies than Jackie Chan. And you got to love the fight choreography. The movies that Jackie Chan has made over the years were mostly for Chinese audiences, and so they don't appeal to our sensibility. The dramatic turns often seem contrived and artificial, and the acting is over the top, to say the least. But when he starts moving, you suspend all disbelief because you can't believe a man could move like that. I've seen a lot of Jackie Chan movies. I haven't seen them all. No one has seen them all, not even Jackie Chan. But I have to put in a word for The Foreigner, which came out a couple of years ago. It's a British production. It's far and away Jackie Chan's most intelligent film. He's brilliantly cast. It's his best acting because it's such a good script. It's a very realistic script that takes place in Great Britain and has to do with the Troubles. Hang on a sec. Pops is messaging me. Uh, yeah, I'm doing it. All right, I'm back. Thanks, Pops. More on your show. I've hijacked Pops Van Zant's YouTube channel for this, but let's get back to Ip Man. Uh, the first one, a masterpiece. Of course, when you compare pictures of Donnie Yen to Ip Man, they look nothing alike. Doesn't matter. By Chinese standards, the script is highly literate and very believable, and it's about Ip Man coming to Hong Kong for the first time. In Ip Man 2, a tried and true kung fu tradition is that he has to fight every other martial artist in town in order to open up his own school. One of the guys he has to fight is Sammo Hung. When Sammo Hung made this movie, he was in his 50s at least and weighed 250 pounds at least. And when you see him jumping around with Donnie Yen, especially when they're fighting on this big round table and the table keeps tilting and they're fighting up one side and down the other and the hands are moving so fast and the blocks and the blows, it's just so beautifully done. Uh, and of course, in every one of these Ip Man movies, in a lot of these kung fu movies, especially those that take place in Hong Kong, uh, they find a white guy to be the heavy. This brings us back to Ip Man #1, when Ip Man has to fight this British bruiser, and you have to credit the producers of these films for finding the nastiest, ugliest white actors they can to play the bad guy. And the guy in Ip Man 1 is just superb. He is such a sneering, arrogant dolt. You can't believe it. And they get away with this because it takes place in the 50s and 60s. And you can reach back into the past for portrayals that you couldn't get away with today. Well, I suppose you could get away with them today. Anyhow, Ip Man 3, he fights Mike Tyson. Enough said. This is a very good movie, and Mike Tyson is excellent in it. And their fight scene together is terrific. I won't tell you who wins, that's giving away the plot, but I hope you will watch it. Finally, we come to Ip Man 4, the last one in the series, sadly, because it's a brilliant series, and I think these are the best kung fu movies ever made. In Ip Man 4, Ip Man travels to San Francisco to visit his most famous student. Now, the guy that plays Bruce Lee doesn't, there have been other actors who looked more like Bruce, but this guy has the mannerisms and the speech down pat. He's really good. He's got one terrific scene right in the middle of the, but that's about it for Bruce Lee because it's really about Ip Man for the most part. Now, for those who are Bruce Lee fans, I should mention that there's a movie called Birth of the Dragon, which also portrays Bruce in his early years. It's complete fantasy, nothing like it ever happened. But the character who plays Bruce is very good, and I recommend it. And finally, I'd like to put in a word for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which for my money is Quentin Tarantino's best film by far. And I could watch it over and over again. The guy that plays Bruce Lee in that movie is a karate instructor from Waunakee, Wisconsin, which is very near my hometown. And it's probably the most accurate portrayal of Bruce Lee I've ever seen in a film outside of Bruce. The way he enunciates each word with ingot chopping precision. So that's it for Kung Fu movies for the time being. I hope you will watch these films.